The vaccination for that.
Call our special finance committee meeting in order at 6 p.m. The roll call is as follows. Representative Dean Shinbrat.
Here.
Ritchie. Here. Gardner.
Here.
Norman.
Here.
Glass. Here. Umbers. Tom, I see you there. Are you there? Okay. New business is 3.1 2024-1020-8 community orientation orientated police safety outcome please.
From background or
Just the
resolution. Resolution authorizing 2024 community orientation policing officer safer outcome grant, enhancing de-escalation and crisis response training for law enforcement. Whereas the town of Groton Police Department continues to make efforts to enhance training for our officers and enable them to deal more effectively with individuals in crisis. With this in mind, the agency applied for a 2024 COPS Officer Safer Outcome Grant, enhancing de-escalation and crisis response training for law enforcement. And whereas this grant program for law enforcement agency provides funding for state, local, tribal, and territorial law enforcement agencies with the goal of promoting safe outcomes during police encounters with persons in crisis through relevant training of law enforcement officers, support personnel employed by law enforcement agencies, and mental health professionals working on crisis intervention as employees of law enforcement agency or under a legal agreement with a law enforcement agency. And whereas, according to the top document, community policing philosophically is a philosophy that promotes organizational strategies that support the systemic use of partnerships and problem-solving techniques to proactively address the immediate conditions that give rise to public safety issues such as violent crime, nonviolent crime, and fear of crime. And whereas on November 14th, the police department learned that the United States Department of Justice Community-Oriented Policing COPS office had awarded the department a grant in the amount of $193,270 under the 2024 COPS Officer Safer Outcomes Grant, enhancing de-escalation and crisis response training for law enforcement. Therefore, be it resolved that the town manager, John Burke, may execute any and all paperwork necessary to satisfy and accept the grant in the amount of $193,270 from the U.S. Department of Justice COPS Safer Outcomes Grant. And she referred the matter to the RTM forward. So we're 6.5.
The chief just give us a brief overview real quick.
Sure. So the COPS office is within the Department of Justice, a federal agency. It's part of DOJ, and they do provide funding to state, local, federal, and territorial law enforcement agencies for a variety of things. You're not eligible for every one of those grants. This is one that officers in our department identified. We do take a very proactive approach to utilizing crisis intervention training and making sure our officers are trained in that area. And as you know, a lot of policing today deals with people in crisis and mental health issues. So this grant was one that we pursued. We found out, late last year that we were being awarded this. Pretty happy with that. We do have a plan for spending it. One thing I want to explain, because sometimes I think it's misunderstood when it comes to grant funding. Grants aren't to supplant funding that you already have. Meaning, if you have a program, you have salaries, you have things that are ordinarily paid for in the course of business for a municipality, for a state agency. You cannot take that money and then replace that. It's called supplanting. It's illegal. What grants are intended to do is to provide additional funding for programs that maybe you haven't been able to fund or maybe you couldn't get achieved. And that's what this is. So where we do some of this training, this is to enhance the overall posture of the entire department, to get more officers trained, to give them higher levels of training, in some cases, not just crisis intervention training, but it's going to be, you know, negotiating with people in crisis that are maybe in a seriously diminished mental state. So it's going to give them additional tools and hopefully be able to off-ramp some of them from maybe criminal justice problems to mental health issues and get them the help that they need. So, you know, I'm pretty proud of the fact that our folks in our training division, we kind of renamed it the Special Program and Training Division because they do a whole bunch of things, including community policing. They're the ones that came up with this and helped really shepherd this through the process, and we're able to get this grant money for it. So I'm happy with that.
Do you have any questions for the chief on this item?
Is everyone getting training or just certain officers? I'm just curious.
It will be spread across the department. Yeah, as I like to say, you know, I have a badge and gun, neither of which I need as much as I used to back in the day. So I would, you know, will I go through some of this training? Probably not. They're probably better suited for our officers that deal with this every day. But we've also got 2 community outreach specialists that are eligible to do some of this training as well. We plan to utilize it for them as well. But it's really going to be for those officers that are on the streets every day doing this stuff.
I do know one of the officers works with a student I used to work with. So now they go, and does go into crisis quite often.
Yeah.
Trying to get to know the student, and I think it's worked out very well.
And I will tell you that, you know, I've been in this line of work for over 30 years now. You know, I wish this was a training that I got and that my contemporaries got back 30 years ago, because it does give you additional tools to handle situations. And we encounter people much more frequently now that are in crisis for a variety of reasons, but not least of which some of those mechanisms that were in place back then don't exist today. The arguments can be made whether it's better or worse, but when you know, we had the Norwich State Hospital where when I was young in my career, we would pick somebody and we would bring them there. It doesn't exist anymore. And maybe that's we rely on police to do this a lot more often than we used to.
Any Representative Gardner or Umbrus, any questions for the chief?
No questions from me. I'm very much in support of this training and excited that we got this grant.
Very good. Representative Norman.
Sorry to miss this. Are you both getting access to additional curriculum that's been designed alongside the ability to train, or is it existing curriculum you already have access to? And it's
Some of it's we already have access to, yeah. And we're not looking at necessarily developing our own curriculum. We're going to utilize those that are out there already. You know, we're sending people to different training across the state. Also allows us to replace officers that are at training. So if you and I were working together, you went to the training, and we needed someone to backfill you, we could have Representative Powers fill in for you. We could pay for him to backfill you. So it's a variety of different things that we can use the money for.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Does this have to be done within a year?
Yeah, there are time constraints. We do have reporting requirements to the federal government to say, hey, we've expended this. There is a time constraint. It is outlined in this document, which as many federal publications have, is a lot of information. I'm not sure if it's entirely a year. I think it's a little bit longer than that, but I can't answer directly what the time frame is. But we should have this expended relatively quickly.
Okay. We'll wait until it gets back.
Right.
Obviously, if we don't spend it, the federal government gets it back.
Yeah, they take it back.
We're authorizing your town manager Bert to execute any and all paperwork. There's no money here specifically supporting that effort. Is this a trivial enough task that we shouldn't be allocating? We don't need to allocate.
No, there are grants that are partially funded, and then you have to do matching. This is not one of those grants. This is entirely funded.
No, I just mean that when it talks about large amounts of paperwork, possibly.
No, we're gonna be
It's
handling
gonna
that.
all be done. Okay, so we don't need to allocate any more money.
No, if you'd like to, we'll accept it. but,
Well, of course,
we're
I
not
know,
looking for
and
it.
if we were giving away free Coke, so we would drink them.
No, I don't drink Coke.
But, and the other question is that how wide a net are you going to spread for people that work with you, but that are not actually police people? which are currently authorized to take this training?
So really, the only ones that I think would be eligible, we might have some eligibility for some dispatchers. We certainly part of the grant, as was just described in the documents that were read initially, is that our community outreach specialists would be.
Yes, you
Yeah,
mentioned
yeah.
that, but I was.
Beyond that, no, maybe more specifically who you
Well-
interested in.
I'm interested in people that are in the schools,
No, it's really for it's
because,
directly,
because you have,
The care officer, is that what you're?
well, there's usually one policeman at the
oh, they'd be,
school,
sure, they'd be
but-
eligible,
But
yeah.
they presumably have the support of whoever does, I don't know, the school nurse or
Yeah,
something.
that would be beyond what's authorized under this grant.
Okay.
It is strictly for members of the department.
Okay,
So unfortunately, they wouldn't be eligible for it. There are grants that are available to them as well.
yeah,
But this one is specifically for the police officers and people with close
okay,
proximity.
because
to the
it says
department.
people that you had contractual arrangements with, so I was wondering what that meant.
That would have, yeah, that would probably be on, we don't have the contractual arrangements with members of the Board of Education. If That's what you're asking. They would be people affiliated with the department. It really doesn't extend.
Okay,
beyond
so we
that.
shouldn't go and get those arrangements, so we could,
It would be too late.
too late.
But just for your, the school does have clinicians in each building
Yes, I
that
know.
deal with that. That there are, and we used to get a lot of training that was done under the Board of Ed.
Okay,
Great questions. Do we have any other questions for the chief? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All opposed, no abstentions. We thank you for your time. I'm sure you'll be here to address all of this at our regular meeting, I hope.
Tonight?
Yes.
I wasn't planning on it, no.
No, you- okay, fine. We're good.
I'd like to eat at some point, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't- The only reason why.
If the town manager tells me I am, then I'll be there.
No.
But if not, then
I call for adjournment. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect, we're adjourned.
did you plan on leaving at the regular meeting?
Are we gonna stay here?
what time? Well, it's warm here.
6 o'clock. Yeah, I have a 6:15, I have to